Hi, students. So we are going to get into a couple of slides of notes here, actually just a very little bit. When you are in class with me, we'll be going through these few slides of notes here. But what I want to talk to you today is about religion and world religions and how it's such an important part of human geography. You know, religions can truly unite areas and commonalities through faith. And so it's, just that basic understanding of a belief in a higher power. It defines how people worship and behave towards each other. Even if you are not religious, it doesn't mean that you are immoral. But those who are religious tend to have kind of a different outlook sometimes on life. And there's three major types of religions that, at least for us, we're going to kind of touch on: monotheistic, polytheistic, and animistic. Now, monotheistic, I think you're very familiar with. That's a belief in one God. Mono means one, and so there's a belief in one God. Polytheistic, if you think of like a polygon in math, it's a belief in many gods, which makes sense. And even notice how I capitalize the uppercase G in God and the lowercase g in God. In gods. In polytheism, there isn't one God. Whereas in Catholicism, we believe that there is one God and there's no other God besides that. Animistic belief is kind of this idea of the divine forces of nature. We see this a lot in Native American cultures where they see the earth, especially, as kind of having a soul, and it can be you are a part of it. Even in the monotheistic belief, we kind of believe that God is. I'm in the presence of God everywhere I go. It doesn't matter. God is always there. The animistic belief is not so much of God, but the divine forces of nature. So water and wind and air and all these parts of nature that are very forceful. So let's start with the major religions, the major monotheistic religions. And we'll start with Judaism. Now, we could go into a whole kind of, religious, religious explanation of Judaism. I love talking about Judaism because it's the oldest monotheistic religion. Jews are people who follow Judaism. That's what we call them. It's not a derogatory term. Sometimes we feel like calling a Jewish person a Jew is like a derogatory idea, but it's not especially a derogatory term. For Jews, their holy city, their holiest city, is in Jerusalem. Remember, God, these are God's chosen people. God said, "You are my chosen people, and I am going to settle you in this land." And Jerusalem is kind of the center of it. That's where they were told to build the temple, and all those things that we know about Judaism. Their sacred book is called the Torah, or Torah sometimes is pronounced. The Torah is like the Jewish Bible. This is where we understand all of those laws that Jews have. In fact, Jesus came and said, maybe all of those laws are really not what we should be focusing on. Maybe we should be focusing on like how we treat each other. And so we see in the Torah the kind of the map, if you will, the guidebook of how you are to live and to behave as a good Jewish follower. There is a symbol of Judaism. If you know anything about like World War II, when Hitler started requiring Jews to wear, it's called the Star of David, a patch on their sleeve, to acknowledge. Now, for me, I kind of think about like, well, would I acknowledge who I am as a Christian? Would I wear a crucifix if I was told I had to wear a crucifix? Of course I would. I'd be very proud to do it. What became unfortunate is that then Hitler used that as a weapon, as a tool against Jewish people who were just very proud to say they were Jewish. Christianity evolved from Judaism, from Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was a Jew. He was a Jew. His mother and his father were Jews. In fact, they were good Jews because they were going into Bethlehem because, they were from Nazareth. They were going to Bethlehem to be counted in the Jewish census. They had to do it. Jesus goes to Jerusalem for the Passover. That's what you had to do. The Torah said that you had to do it. Jesus Christ was a really good Jew. those who didn't believe that he was the Christ, that he was the Messiah, then become Christians. Or pardon me, then stayed Jews. Those who believed that he is the Messiah became Christians. Those who said, no, he was not the Messiah. That is not who the prophets were telling us about. They became they became they stayed Jews, and those who left and believed that Jesus Christ was who he said he was became Christians. Christianity is the largest of any religion. Now that's quickly changing. What I will say is at this point, Christianity is the largest of any religion, but it's probably going to be overtaken. Now that's Christianity combined with Catholics, Protestants, and Orthodox Christians. You know, we're Roman Catholic Christians, but our Protestant friends are very much Christian. They believe in one God. They believe that Jesus Christ was God. Jesus Christ died on the cross. But then there's also Orthodox Christians who are very similar in many different ways to, say, Catholics, for example. Our sacred book in Christianity is the Bible. We know that. There is the symbol of Christianity, you know, a crucifix. And Islam. Islam is based on the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. Now, Muhammad was, if you trace his lineage way, 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 way back, you can see that Muhammad came from he was a descendant of Abraham. If you know anything about the story of Abraham and his wife Sarah, they couldn't have children. And for a Jewish man, not to be able to have children was a real shame on your family. Well, you remember Abraham and Sarah are very old, and there are these men who visit, and they say, you know, this time next year, Sarah, you're going to have a baby. And she laughs at him. She's like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Well, it turns out she does. But before that, Abraham actually has a child with another woman. In fact, he does at Sarah's blessing. Her name was Hagar, and Hagar had a son named Ishmael. Well, Sarah became really, really jealous of Hagar and Ishmael. And so eventually she forced it. Hagar was like Sarah and Abraham's maid, like their servant. And she becomes really jealous and forces Hagar and Ishmael to leave. They wander around in the desert for a while, and eventually they're picked up by a Bedouin tribe. Generation after generation, years and years and years and years and years later, that Ishmael becomes the great 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 grandfather of a man named Muhammad. And Muhammad is a prophet who, again, close ties to Judaism, but he begins the religion of Islam. Now, you should know that the religion is called Islam, but the people who follow the Islamic teachings, the people who follow the Prophet Muhammad's teachings are called Muslims. So don't call them Islams or, something like that. That is rather disrespectful. Not that you're trying to be, but remember, Islam is the religion. Muslims are the people who follow the religion. This is the fastest growing religion. It's because many Islamic families, many Muslim families have many children often. They have more children than average Christian families do. And so therefore their religion is growing very, very rapidly. The sacred book of Muslim teaching is the Quran. If you see it spelled Koran or Quran, it means the same thing. And these are the words of the Prophet Muhammad. These are the, again, kind of like the guidelines you are to live by, like in the Torah of Muslim religion, or Islam, the religion of Islam. This is a symbol of Islam. We see most Islamic nations tend to be centered in the Mideast because that's where Muhammad was from. However, there's very, very large pockets of Muslim communities all over the United States and really all over the world. Southeast Asia has many large countries who are predominantly Muslim. All right, Hinduism. Hinduism is a polytheistic religion, means they believe in many gods. It is the oldest religion. Like it is the oldest polytheistic religion. You know, when we talk about Judaism, Judaism is about, well, we're talking 5,000 years or so. It has been around a long time. Hinduism has been around a great deal of time. Hinduism originated in India, and it's very much tied to their social class in India as well as other parts. We know this is a caste system, and so it's kind of like this pyramid of social hierarchy. And if you are at the bottom of the social hierarchy, you're really kind of shunned from society, and it's probably because you've done something bad or wrong in your past life. They believe in the idea of reincarnation. So if you're living in this life and you're at a very low level of social status, it's probably because you made some really grave sins. Have you ever heard of the word karma? You've made some really grave sins in your past life, and so you're kind of paying for them now. If you're at a higher level of a social caste, it's called, that's probably because you have some honor, and the gods were pleased with you. The Brahmin is kind of like this overarching divine notion of a spirit. It's not God, but it's kind of like their highest idea of a god. Their sacred texts are the Vedas. Again, kind of these ways of living, how you are supposed to live your day-to-day life, things that are expected of you as a good Hindu person. And Buddhism. Buddhism is kind of like an offshoot and adaptation of Hinduism. It was developed by the Buddha. You've heard of the Buddha. So the Buddha was a real man, a real human being, not a god. Developed by the Buddha to achieve an enlightened spiritual state of nirvana. Now, that might not happen in a lifetime. And so Buddhism, just like Hinduism, believes that you kind of go through these stages of reincarnation, and you might have to go through many different kind of states of life to get to nirvana. And nirvana is kind of this highest level of not only living, but being, of your essence of who you are. So these two on this slide are the polytheistic religions that I would like you to know. The three on this slide are the major monotheistic religions that I need you to know. So other than that, we are done for the day. If you have any questions, of course, let me know. But until we meet again, see you later.